Let's begin with a little meditation. Close our eyes and sit still, be poised, and open our mind and our being to the infinite. Imagine or acknowledge the omnipresence of that one reality, which is everywhere, all around us and in us, as us. Let us honor the great saints of all enlightenment traditions and honor the divine nature of every person. Let your breathing just occur naturally. Just let it happen. It can be helpful to put your attention up here between the eyebrows and the front part of the brain. And just observe your breathing as it happens. Feel the air coming in through the nostrils, feeling cool, and flowing out, feeling warm. Feel the air coming in evenly through both nostrils and flowing out through both nostrils. When the air is flowing evenly through both nostrils, then the left and right hemispheres of the brain, two sides of the brain, are more inclined to have harmonious interaction or communication, which provides an ideal condition for meditation practice that enables us to be both deeply relaxed and mentally alert. This is one of the keys to meditation practice, to learn to sit still, be physically relaxed, and mentally alert. Very attentive, noticing what occurs in the mind and awareness, and yet being somewhat detached. Noticing how when breathing becomes very slow, how the mind becomes very calm, emotions become quiet, and there are occasions of what appear to be spaces between streams of thoughts, and we have the opportunity to experience awareness without thoughts, pure awareness, pure existence, which enables us to experience what we are as spiritual beings. So this is the way, in the early stages of meditation, one way that is helpful to observe the breathing and observe how when thoughts become quiet and emotions settle, your awareness becomes more clear, and you have an opportunity to be more aware, more conscious of your true nature, your essence, which is a unit of the pure essence of that ultimate reality. Om, peace. All right. That was only a short a meditation experience. When you are practicing by yourself, you can sit as long as you want to sit and observe how the mind becomes calm and you become more aware, more conscious, more peaceful, more self-knowing or self-realized. The word realization means to experience and to know. So when we experience and know our true nature, then we are self-realized. And of course, to go beyond that, when we actually experience and know that ultimate reality, commonly referred to as God, and of course other names are used in other languages and cultures, but that ultimate reality, when that is experienced and known, that is also the highest realization that results in illumination of consciousness and eventually spiritual freedom. Freedom occurs when the awareness is so clear that we're always aware of what we are in relationship to the infinite. And also, eventually, all of the troublesome subconscious conditions that formerly disturbed and caused difficulty, when they are neutralized, when they are completely absent, and also when the mind only has accurate information about higher realities and about everyday circumstances, when there are no longer any false or untrue ideas in the mind, that also is helpful to liberation of consciousness or soul freedom. So the ultimate aim of spiritual practice, according to great mystics of all traditions, is to be fully spiritually awake at all times. When I first met my teacher, Paramahansa Yogananda, in 1949, when I was 18 years of age, I went to him with this ideal, this aspiration, this desire to be spiritually awake, to be enlightened. And his emphasis to me over the next 2 years before he passed from his body, his emphasis to me was to aspire and to endeavor to that ultimate realization. During my first interview with him in 1949, it was at this time of year, in late December, when I met him in Los Angeles, California. And I had my first interview with him on a Sunday, and that year it was Christmas Day, December 25. And I privately talked with him for about 20 minutes. And I asked if I could be his disciple, and he accepted me for training. And after he gave me basic advice on how to live and fit into the community, and how to meditate, and how often to meditate, and what to read, his final words on that occasion were, read a little, he meant worthwhile material, read a little, meditate more, and think of God all the time. And I have lived by that for these past almost 70 years, 68 years now. And then after 2 years, a little more than 2 years, shortly before he passed, I had my last visit with him, and we talked for about an hour. And at the end of that time with him, he gave me final personal advice the last time I talked with him. And the advice was this. He said, don't allow your mind to be troubled by what people do or don't do, or by what you see or what happens in your environment. Don't look back, and don't look this way or that way, but look straight to the goal, to the aim of life, which is to be self-realized and awaken completely in this incarnation. And you can do it. And that's how he talked to me, very, very straightforward. So I'm glad to be able to talk with you in that manner and to remind you of the ultimate aim of life, what it is, and to share some ideas about how it can be experienced and known or completely realized. Now, there are other methods of meditation, of course, and I'll explain a few of them now. Meditation practice is simply the procedure of directing attention and concentrating on that which you find useful to concentrate in order to become absorbed in it, and then to eventually go beyond it, to transcend it. So in the Yoga Sutra of Patanjali, which I'm sure Sabiha has mentioned and talked about in your classes, Patanjali describes steady concentration as meditation. That is, concentration on an ideal or that which you want to realize. And then the result is either identification with that or transcendence, going beyond it. For instance, when you're meditating, you may have a perception of inner light, or you may feel very pleasant, or you may hear subtle sound frequencies, and you may be so absorbed in contemplation or looking at that light or having that sensation or awareness of subtle sound that for a while it seems that you are that you have identified with it. And it's only when you come back to your mind that you have the memory of that experience, and you think, oh, for a while it seemed to me that I was that I was light, or I was ecstasy or joy, or I was that sound, or I was space. But having come out of that, or away from that, now you have the memory of it. And that is a preliminary state of what in Sanskrit we call it samadhi, or a state of oneness, a state of feeling I am one with something. But that kind of samadhi, or that kind of experience, while it is useful in calming the emotions and the mind, it doesn't result in psychological transformation or purification of the mind, because you come back to your ordinary viewpoint and you are like you were before, only with that memory, which was very pleasant. So what the yogis say is go beyond that, and so that you awaken to an experience and a conscious awareness of what you are as a pure essence, or a pure consciousness. And during that experience, you are completely aware of what you are. You are not identified with something other than what you are, but you are experiencing what you are. One of the people in India who was considered to be a great saint in the last century in South India, Ramana Maharshi, after many years of secluded meditation, became self-realized. And ever after, when people would come to visit him, and many thousands visited his ashram, and usually he just sat with them. He didn't lecture and he didn't teach classes. He was just established in this self-knowing state. and people came and were uplifted just by being with him. But now and then he would talk with people, and people would ask, how can I be self-realized? And he would answer, it's really very easy. All you have to do is be still. And now the stillness that he was talking about is that absolute quietness of mind and an absolute emotional stillness. Not just sitting and not moving, but being mentally and emotionally absolutely quiet. In the Patanjali Yoga Sutra, in the first chapter of that book, Patanjali described what happens when we meditate skillfully. And it's in the second sutra, or we call them verses, the second sutra of that first chapter. And he wrote, when the movements and changes that ordinarily occur in the mind and awareness when we are restless, when they stop, and even the unconscious inclinations that activate thoughts quiet, and there is absolute stillness, then there can be self-knowing or self-realization. And then he goes on from there to say that otherwise, that is, when that condition is not existing, attention and awareness is inclined to again identify with the movements and changes in the mind. And I'm sure many of you have experienced that. You've had occasions when you've prayed or meditated and been very peaceful, very serene. But as you come out of that meditative experience, you notice that you again identify with your thoughts and your feelings and your moods. And so that's human nature. But eventually, it's possible to maintain this inner awareness of what we are at all times after meditation, so that we can be objective, or we can observe what is going on around us, and we can interact, and we can perform our duties. But inwardly, we're always established in that awareness of what we are. That doesn't change. So that is the ideal realization to have, that realization of what I am as a spiritual being at all times. So other forms or methods of meditation, one, of course, is prayer. Many people like to pray when they first sit to meditate. And to do this, one can pray to God or a higher reality or to deity, however they feel inclined to do it. And the secret here is to pray for success in meditation practice, to pray for realization, to pray to be spiritually awake. And then after a while, stop praying and wait and watch. That's the important part of that process. You pray for inspiration, you pray for guidance, you pray for realization, and then after a while you rest in the silence and just wait and watch and let that inner awareness emerge and become obvious. So as we pray, and then we rest in the silence, waiting, surrendered. You understand the meaning of surrender, letting go of this sense of, the small sense of self, the small, we call it egocentric, or self-centered small sense, awareness in the small sense, where we feel confined and identified with our personality and our habits. We want to surrender that, let it go, and rise above it, see through it and rise above it, so that we can experience what we are. And this is something to remember. that which we are endeavoring to realize or experience is already true of us at a deeper level. At the deepest level inside, we are already pure, whole, perfect, serene, and we know the truth of what we are, and we know the truth of higher or ultimate reality. But it's only when we are identified with the movements in the mind and the false ideas and opinions that we've accumulated or perhaps generated in our own mind that we have a problem. So meditation is an opportunity for us to withdraw our attention from all that we are not so that we can experience what we are. So we can pray in the beginning of meditation, we can pray and to have peace of mind, to know ultimate reality, to awaken completely, and then rest in the silence and wait and watch to see what happens. And not be impatient, but do it patiently and with trust and faith. And eventually, if we sit long enough, alert and attentive, surrendered, our innate awareness comes to the surface, our innate knowing of what we are in relationship to the wholeness of life becomes more obvious, and we begin to have those experiences and perceptions that we recognize are of great value. So you can pray at the outset, at the beginning of meditation, and then rest in the silence, being very alert, very watchful, very attentive. Another way to begin to meditate when you first sit, if your mind is restless, is to use an affirmation or a declaration or a statement that is true, simply to give your attention something to identify with. So you can simply mentally say what is true. I am a spiritual being. I am a spiritual being. Or, the radiance of my pure essence illumines my mind and consciousness. Or, I am one with the infinite. Or, I am a unit, a perfect expression of this ultimate reality. So you take a statement that is spiritually true, even though in the beginning you may not feel that it's true of you at the level of personality, but inside you know it is, and you affirm it. I am a spiritual being. And you, after a while, you stop talking and you rest in that awareness of what you affirmed. That is, you accept it, you feel it to be true. And that can be helpful in bringing your attention into a higher level of understanding. Another meditation procedure is, along with breath observation or watching the breathing, is to use what is called a mantra, Sanskrit word, which means that which protects the mind. But ordinarily it's only a word or a phrase that can be used to keep attention focused. For instance, while you are sitting in the early stages of meditation, you put your attention here to bring your attention up out of the subconscious. And also, it's been observed in recent years by neuroscientists who have studied the results of meditation practice, working with volunteer subjects. It has been observed that when people are meditating effectively, the front region of the brain is involved with that process. The front region of the brain is associated with controlling impulses, also with concentration, and with creativity. And it has been found that the front region of the brain of meditators is more developed than in people who are not meditators. A study was done a few years ago using two groups of people. One group was taught how to meditate using a mantra and breath awareness. Another group was taught how to use imagination to imagine themselves being peaceful and comfortable and happy, and perhaps imagine they were in the woods with running water and with flowers and beautiful trees, as a way to calm the mind and quiet the emotions and to feel better. And after a few weeks, they examined both members of both groups first. Then after a few weeks, and they found that the meditators, front parts of the brain of the meditators had developed more, and the group that had been taught only to imagine a pleasant environment, that there was no change in their brain. So we know that the brain is developed by meditation. I remember Paramahansa Yogananda saying this in 1950, and it's only in recent years that neurologists and psychologists are now saying, or have been saying, oh yes, the brain can be developed. You can learn to concentrate. You can learn to play music. You can learn a language. You can learn to do mathematics, even if you don't have the skill when you first begin. The areas in your brain that process those activities will develop if you exercise the brain. So this is this is very good to know, especially for beginning meditators who say, I can't concentrate. I try, but my mind is restless. I can't control my mind. We say, stay with it in the right way. Stay with it patiently. And in time, you will develop the ability to do it. It comes with practice. But if we try it just for 6 weeks or a couple of months and say, well, I'm hopeless, it won't work for me, then that's not useful. We have to be dedicated to the idea that I am going to be successful in the practice of meditation, just like we should be dedicated to whatever it is we're going to do, whether it's accomplishing a goal or completing a project in our everyday life. We have to be focused, and we have to stay with it, and we have to learn what to do to be successful. Likewise, on the spiritual path, we have to learn what to do to be successful and then do it. So you can use a mantra or a word or a phrase to focus attention. You can use the word Om, or a word God, or a word for God in your native language, or what feels good to you. Or you can simply use a word like peace or joy as a mantra. And the way you do it is you let the breathing just happen. Just breathe naturally. And when you breathe in, mentally say that word. And when you breathe out, mentally say that word. And then after a while, instead of mentally saying the word, mentally listen to the word. Imagine that you hear the word or the phrase. And then after a while, let the word or the phrase go away and just rest in that stillness that results from successful practice. So you use the technique or the procedure until you don't need it anymore, and then you rest in that calm, tranquil state that is you experience as a result of successful use of the procedure. Paramahansa Yogananda, my teacher, used to remind his students that when you use a meditation technique and you get to the stage of peacefulness or tranquility, let the technique go, just let go of it, and stay there in that state of peacefulness. He used to say, if you don't do that, you're like a person who prepares a wonderful meal of food but doesn't eat any of it. You work at preparation, but then you don't stay around long enough to enjoy the results of what you've done. So the use of a meditation technique is preliminary. Now, if you're a beginning meditator and you need to use a procedure such as prayer or affirmation or breath awareness or mantra for the entire 20 or 30 minutes of practice, however long you practice, to stay focused, that's all right in the beginning. But eventually you'll get to the place where you'll be able to just use the procedure for a few minutes and then be at that place of tranquility and inner peace, and you can let the technique or the method go, and then you are just there in that stillness. And when you get to a certain stage of stillness, your inner intelligence will direct the meditation process. Everyone has an inner desire or urge to be spiritually awake. So when we can get to the place where we are mentally calm and emotionally peaceful and receptive and aspiring to be awake, that inner intelligence, that inner urge takes over, and meditation becomes spontaneous or effortless. It just happens, and we just sit there and experience the changes that occur, that are beneficial changes that occur. And some mystics refer to this process of inner awakening that happens spontaneously as grace. It's not anything that we're doing, but it's something that we are allowing. It just happens, and we are aware of the fact that it is coming up from within us, and we're becoming more conscious, more peaceful, our awareness is becoming more expanded. We're becoming more knowledgeable about our relationship with the infinite. And this understanding just seems to open up in our mind and consciousness. And we wonder, where is it coming from? It's coming from deep within us. That's why I say that the progress that is made on the spiritual path that happens spontaneously is self-revelation. Revelation is the unveiling and the revealing from within us that which is already there. It's not that we put anything in to become spiritual or spiritually conscious, but that we learn to open ourselves to allow what is already there to unfold, to blossom, and as it will. So this is the idea on a spiritual path, that we don't have to forcibly try to make something happen, but rather we do our best to remove or let go of the conditions that bind us, that confine our mind and awareness. In the Patanjali's Yoga Sutra text, in the second chapter, he defines the spiritual practice, which we call Kriya Yoga, very simply. And by the way, the word Kriya, Sanskrit word, simply means action or procedure. It's an exotic sounding word, but it really means a procedure, something that we do. And the word yoga from Sanskrit simply means to unite, to bring together. And what are we bringing together? We are bringing together our attention and our awareness with our pure essence. We are not trying to connect with something outside of ourselves, but we are simply allowing our attention and awareness to come together with our essence. And when that happens, that is realization. We call it unification or union, but it is really realization. So that is the essence of spiritual practice. So in the second chapter, of the Yoga Sutra, Patanjali defines that practice as discipline of the mind and body and the senses, profound self-examination, and surrender of this small sense of self-identity. He calls this the practice of Kriya Yoga, or right spiritual practice. And he goes on to say, we do it to remove what he refers to as the afflictions, and for the cultivation of self-realization. And the so-called afflictions are simply the troublesome conditions that we have that cause us problems, whether it's anxiety, worry, lack of faith, troublesome subconscious influences and habits and tendencies that are not good for us to have. All of these conditions that cause confusion and conflict. So the idea of spiritual practice is to get them out of the way so that we are no longer bothered by them. And then we become psychologically healthy. And then we can think clearly. And we can make right choices. And we can act decisively. So that's the idea. But further about meditation. Another procedure when you're sitting in the silence, if there is something that you want to know or to experience that doesn't come easily, that you aren't able to know or experience easily, just sit there in the silence and look at it, contemplate it, examine it with expectation of discovery. That's the important thing. Have the expectation that I am going to know it, that I'm going to have a revelation, I'm going to have insight. And then when you do that, you are going to stay alert and attentive and not drift into a semi-sleep or a semi-unconscious state. And by the way, when you are meditating, if you notice that you're becoming sleepy or drowsy and you start doing this, letting your head drop and slumping, don't allow that. When you notice it happening, sit up straight. Raise your head like this, put your attention here. If that doesn't work, if you still find that you are sleepy and drowsy and starting to do this, and you're not able to avoid that by using your will, then open your eyes for a while and look straight ahead without focusing on anything and without allowing your eyes to blink. Well, they'll blink naturally to lubricate the eyes, but don't let your eyes flicker. Don't sit there and look like this, like that. Look straight ahead. Just gaze straight ahead. And just be there. Like that. And you will notice when you do that, when you first do it, that your breathing may be inclined to stop. You can experiment with that. Just exhale, look straight ahead at something without focusing your attention. And notice how your breathing is inclined to temporarily stop. Don't worry, it'll start. And so pretty soon you'll start breathing naturally, but you have that steady gaze. You're just looking straight ahead without examining anything, without looking at anything. And pretty soon you don't even see what's out there. Your eyes are open, but you have that vacant gaze, and you are in your awareness. You're not looking out there. Your eyes are open, but you're not looking, and you are in your awareness is more clear. Then after a while, you can let your eyes be closed again if you want to. But you'll experience that you don't have to have your eyes closed all the time to be superconscious. Now, we use the word superconscious to indicate a state of awareness or consciousness that is very clear. Ordinarily, even when we are not meditating, but just in our ordinary way of living, our mind is constantly busy. Memories are coming up and going down. We are thinking, and we're not in control of the mind. And our moods are changing. But when you are superconscious, your awareness is very clear, and it is as though you are sort of above it all. You can be aware of your feelings, your memories, your thoughts, and what you are observing, but you are somewhat removed from that. And your awareness is very clear. You can think rationally. You can make right decisions. And sometimes you can be intuitive. You can know what needs to be known just by knowing it. And so that's what is called superconsciousness is a state of consciousness other than ordinary states of consciousness which are modified and involved with thoughts and emotions. The word super simply means above or beyond. That's what it is. So a superconscious state is above or beyond ordinary states of consciousness. So when you meditate, it's useful to want to experience a superconscious state, a state of enhanced clarity of awareness. And when you experience that, you will recognize it for what it is. You will know, I am there. I am in this. I am at that stage now where my awareness is very clear, and my awareness is at least temporarily removed from emotional conditions and from random thoughts. In the early stages, there may be a mixture of superconscious awareness and thoughts. You may be aware of thoughts and shifting moods, but the greater portion of your awareness is clear. But eventually, you can experience absolute clarity of awareness without the intrusion of thoughts or shifting emotions. That is a very therapeutic, transformative stage of consciousness. That is why it has been found in studies using meditators, when their brain waves have been checked and their blood specimen has been examined after meditation, they have found that regular meditation to the stage of superconsciousness or clarity of awareness, that they psychologists refer to that as the peak experience of meditation. They have found that repeated experiences of that on a regular, preferably daily schedule, has the side benefits, or results in the side benefits of stronger immune system, so better health, more rational thinking, improved powers of concentration, slowing of biological aging signs, and of course, natural, effortless spiritual awakening or spiritual growth. So regular practice of meditation to the stage of superconsciousness also provides all of these other benefits. That's why I recommend meditation for everyone, even for people who say, well, I'm not necessarily, at the moment at least, on a spiritual path. I'm interested in God and divine things, but I'm not really focused on the idea of enlightenment right now. I've got other things to take care of. But even if a person is not consciously on a spiritual path, if they will meditate to the stage of clarity of awareness on a regular schedule, they're going to be healthier, happier, think more clearly, make better decisions, and so on. It is actually good for the mind and the body to meditate to the stage of clarity of awareness and this experience of tranquility and peacefulness. And in this, I'm sure many of you know that worldwide now more people are meditating than ever before. And there are many people who meditate because they say, I feel better, I have more energy, I can keep my sanity, I can relate to my everyday world with more common sense. So there are a lot of people in the business world and in show business and in sports who are meditating because it helps them function better. And more, and many medical doctors now are recommending meditation to their patients who are scheduled for surgical procedure. And they find that when they learn to meditate, that they have less anxiety, less worry about the procedure when it's going to occur, and they heal faster after the procedure. And in America now, meditation is being taught in some schools, not as a religious practice, but as a practice for relaxation. And Hatha Yoga is also being practiced in schools now. And again, not as a religious practice. In our country, you can't take religion into the public schools because we have separation between church and state and so on. But you can take yoga into classroom and call it relaxation, and the children have benefits from their practice. And they have found that with very small children, not only do they enjoy the practices and the few minutes of quiet time, they call it, they don't call it meditation, quiet time. The children enjoy doing it, and also they become more relaxed, they get along better with their classmates, they have better study habits, and they have more control over their emotions. They're taught that when something happens that upsets you or disturbs you, take a deep breath and relax. And do that 2 or 3 times. And the children learn to do that, and they like doing that. So instead of fighting and arguing, they relax, and they're happy. And they get along better at home with their brothers and sisters and their parents. And their parents like the results too. So these procedures are of value to people in all walks of life, not only to people who are on the spiritual path. But if you're on a spiritual path, they're certainly of great value. A spiritual path is simply a way of living that can enable us to live in the right way and be healthy, happy, and productive, skillful in the actions we perform, while we are experiencing progressive awakening, spiritual awakening, and realization of our true nature, and a better understanding of our relationship with the infinite, with this larger reality. And this can be practiced by anyone. We don't have to live in a monastery or in a secluded environment to practice meditation or to be on a spiritual path. Some people, young people say to me, well, I'm so busy, I'm married, we have 2 children, I work long hours, and I have a lot of responsibilities, I don't have time to meditate. Can I put it off until I retire, until the kids go to college, and I have more free time? That's not a good idea. Anyone, if they want to, can schedule 20 or 30 minutes every day for silent time, for private time. Anyone can do that. No matter how busy we are, we can set aside 20, 30 minutes. I recommend even a little longer, an hour, for private time, for prayer, for silent meditation, for an improved awareness of our relationship with the infinite, for a better sense of our purpose in life. Just a little quiet time every day. Because sometimes, people are caught up, they're so busy and so frantic with their relationships and their activities that they don't slow down. If they slowed down and learned to be more peaceful, they could think more clearly, function more successfully, accomplish more in less time with less strain and anxiety, and be happier and more healthy-minded. So it's a matter of what kind of choices, what kind of a life do we want anyway? What kind of life? And I know at a deeper level, everyone, when they are honest with themselves, will say, yes, I want to be happy. I want to have a better understanding of my relationship with the infinite. And it can be accomplished in our current lifetime, our current incarnation. We can do it in this current incarnation. And our realization, our enlightenment, is not only for us, it is for everyone else. Because the more conscious we are of what we are spiritually, the more we influence other people silently. Even if we don't talk about religion or spirituality to other people, if we are inwardly more spiritually conscious and living right, not only our example, but also our mental attitude and our states of consciousness influence the environment. Other people are silently uplifted and benefited by our higher states of consciousness. And the collective consciousness, that is the consciousness of all people on the planet, is beneficially influenced when we are more spiritually conscious. Just as we are inclined to be influenced by what is in that larger consciousness, until we learn to be self-sufficient and self-realized, other people are influenced by what we contribute to that larger consciousness. So that's an important thing to remember, that we are not selfish, we are not self-centered to be on a spiritual path, because the more spiritually conscious we are, the more we can contribute to the well-being of other people on the planet. We currently have more than 7 billion people on the planet now, in the world that we inhabit. More than 7 billion people. And I'm sure you are aware of the great need worldwide for spiritual education and spiritual awakening, and for the influence of more people on the planet to be spiritually conscious and to share their clear thinking and their spiritual awareness with the larger consciousness of our planet. So I see our time is almost concluded this morning. Let's have a moment of silence. It only takes a moment to come together in the silence. And first to acknowledge the truth. I am a spiritual being. I am one with the infinite. And let's take a moment to acknowledge in our mind and awareness, acknowledge the more than 7 billion people on the planet, and radiate goodwill to everyone, everywhere. And wish for everyone what I call their highest good, their complete well-being, their health, their happiness, their prosperity, and above all, spiritual awareness. We can want this for them, we can believe it for them, and we can have faith that their inner awareness is becoming more pronounced and they are becoming more spiritually conscious. It is very beneficial for us to feel this spiritual friendship with everyone everywhere, and to be thankful for the good fortune that others have, and for the good fortune that we have. And to cultivate awareness of our spiritual nature in all circumstances. I recommend that this be done every day. When you meditate, at the end of meditation, just think with love and goodwill of everyone in the world and radiate goodwill to them, and a silent prayer and a blessing to uplift their consciousness. I think doing this is very useful. So I am very pleased to have had this opportunity to be with you this morning. And thank you, Sabiha and Sabiha's friends, for making this possible. I look forward to again communicating with you in this way, and also perhaps seeing you here in America or wherever we may again meet in person. But regardless of whether we are together in a personal way, at a spiritual level, we are together all the time, because in this omnipresence of God or this one life, there's no separation, there's no distinction, there's only oneness. So thank you again, and God bless.
Thank you so much.